Hello, this is an assessment for restoration of a Bechstein Model 5, 1899, and it has typical problems of the Bechstein Models 1 to 5, which we're going to have a look at in a minute. First of all, good news is that the keyboard is in very good condition. There's one chip in the middle here, and that can be repaired and put almost invisibly. The case is in good condition, though it's faded on that side, as you can see. There's a biscuit missing on the other side. This piece here is what we call a biscuit in the trade, and missing on this side. It's a very common problem. Piano's equally faded on the other side too. Generally polish in good condition otherwise. Looks a bit on the scratchy side on the front here, and the name Bechstein obviously can bring that out better. It would look superb if it was fully repolished. Here's an example of a Bechstein Grand of a similar age that we've repolished. Obviously the veneer on here is different and more figured, but rosewood veneer comes up beautifully. This is a rosewood veneer. It looks a bit walnutty or lighter colour at the moment, but it's actually rosewood underneath. Now this has got the typical problem of models 1 to 5 of Bechstein before 1902, and the problem is that the WREST-PLANK here doesn't cope well with central heating. Even if you put new pins in, even longer pins, you're still going to find that very often they go loose. We've had pianos in that have been fully restored, not by ourselves, but haven't had a new WREST-PLANK in. So we've had to, even though they're fully restored, put a new WREST-PLANK in. It's been a very common job that we've had to do. Now this here has been put in because the strings, the tuning pins are loose and the strings won't hold their tuning. So as you play here, you hear that one of those three strings is the tuning pin is loose. So if you try and tune it up, even if you try and tune it up, it still goes down again. Same problem with the bass too. So really the only solution is to change the WREST-PLANK, change the tuning block here. We have other videos related to this if you want to learn a bit more about it. Now the action itself looks dirty, but it's actually quite well regulated. If you look at the dampers, they more or less lift off together, and the that's with the pedal, and with the hammers, sorry, with the key, the spoons is what we have to adjust, and they more or less lifting off at the same time as well, and halfway to the string. They're all perfect. There's some bass ones here, a couple there. They're too early. Those ones are a bit better, but regulation not terribly bad. It'll certainly be tidied up. We see there that the tapes are beginning to break. There's a couple of temporary tapes. We call them American tapes too. These clip-ons, we get them from the USA. You can put them on temporarily if you've just got 2 or 3 broken, but you could change all these tapes. It's not going to be too much of a problem unless you want to graphite and lubricate inside the action, and feeling it's not desperate need of lubrication. So if you change the tapes, obviously you can lubricate at the same time. There's one bottom hammer come off. It's in the piano. By the way, if parts come off, it's best to leave them in the piano because they so easily get separated otherwise. Case of this hammer, it's the butt that's broken, and just had to replace the whole butt really. There's no point in trying to repair it. It just won't hold. Now, while we're replacing the tuning block, we can replace the strings at the same time, and it will improve the tone actually. The tone's typically sweet. It's beautiful. Model 5 is a beautiful tone piano. It's really better than the Model 4, which is overstrung, because you have longer strings in this part here, and also the dampers are better. If we're looking at an overstrung to show you what I mean. This is an overstrung Model 9 that we actually have in stock, and there's a different WREST-PLANK system, as you can see. The other one had metal across here. This one's exposed, but funnily enough, these are actually okay with central heating generally. Obviously, you have to make sure you don't dry them out too much, but the tuning pins tend to stay tight. You don't need to change the WREST-PLANK as much as you do on the other ones. Well, hardly ever do you have to change WREST-PLANKs on these. You can change them, obviously it improves it, and if you restring the piano, you might decide to do that. In this case, this is a reconditioned one, and the action, as you can see, has been reconditioned. But here, the tone there is different from the tone there, because it's very hard to match. And also, the damper there is really small. They need a fly damper here, and this damper's too small as well. So the damping isn't quite as good as a Model 5. And the piano's not as tall. So the Model 5 and Model 10 is the equivalent to the second series. This is a Model 9, and the Model 10, which is similar to the 4 that we're looking at, sorry, the 5 we're looking at, is actually in some respects a better piano. The bottom bass on these is slightly longer strings, but it's round here that counts the most, in the tenor area. So back to this Model 5, you have a richer bass, much richer tenor area, sorry, and the piano is taller, and therefore the string length here is longer, although at the very bottom it is slightly shorter, not that much though. So I recommend Model 5 and 10 above Model 9, which is the overstrung, so the straight strung is better. By the way, the hammers on this piano are pretty much 100%. They can be refaced and voiced a little bit, but you can see a bit of indentation. It has been played, but this is a good hammer and sounds very pleasant. And you won't improve it much by changing them or at all. They're well matched to the piano. And by the way, if you do change hammers, you've really got to line them up well. Otherwise, you might as well not do the work at all. You get a worse job than you had before the hammers were changed. Also, the weighting of them is really good. So I don't recommend changing the hammers. Lastly, the bridge down here is in good condition. When we change the strings, it's a good idea to recondition the soundboard at the same time. It's not bad at all, but there's a crack there, and it would be nice to recondition that, to replace, to fill the crack with a shim. The frame down here is black. I don't really see any point in refinishing that. For cosmetic reasons, you might want to refinish the frame at the top, but very often we don't do so. Once it's cleaned up, it does look really good. So that's an assessment of a Bechstein Model 5 upright piano, 1899. It has the typical problem that 1 to 5 have, which is loose tuning pins. But the Model 5 is a very sweet sounding piano. One of my favourites, and tenor is a very good, nice long strings in the tenor. Being the straight strings, actually longer strings, and more even a tone. Once restrung and with the wrestplank replaced, it's even sweeter sounding. And the hammers are pretty good. You can hear the problem here with the wrestplank, can't you? So obviously that will be completely cured and guaranteed for, well, the wrestplank 10 years really. Well, that lasts a lot longer than that. Got about 30 years, 40 years life into it, as long as your heating is kept even. And the tuning will be very accurate too. Once the wrestplank's changed, this really well made piano and stay well in tune. Thank you very much for listening.